Lesson 64, greatest common factor. So what we're going to be working on today is something that is not new. We actually have practiced finding the greatest common factor before, way back in lesson 20. But today we're going to review that skill that we already learned, and then we are going to apply it to fractions directly. All right, so just a bit of a review here, first of all, for some terminology. A factor, remember, is a number that you multiply. So in my example here, 2 times 3 equals 6. 2 and 3 are both considered factors of 6 because you can multiply them to get a 6. Okay, so a factor is just a number that you multiply. So when we're looking for the greatest common factor, we are looking for the biggest matching factor. Okay, and maybe you remember this, maybe you don't, but we learned 2 different methods for finding the greatest common factor. The first method was the list method, okay? So what you're going to be doing in your work today is you're going to be given 2 numbers and you're going to have to find the factors of that number. So for number 44, remember, we always start with a 1. 1 is always a factor of every number because you can always multiply 1 and the number itself to get that number. So 1 and 44 are both factors of 44. And since 44 is an even number, a factor will be 2. 2 times 22 will get you 44. And then there's actually one more set of factors. We have a 4 times 11 will also get you a 44. So those are the factors of 44. And you just have to do, for the list method, remember, you just have to do some thinking about the number, thinking about what you could multiply together to get that number. And I think I'm going to run out of room for 100 here, but let's see if we can do it. We have 1 and 100. 100 is even, so we can multiply something by 2. 2 times 50 gets you 100. We can multiply by 4. 4 times 25. Yep, I think I'm going to run around. Maybe I can squish it in. 5 times 20. Nope, I'm not going to. Imagine that a 10 fits in there as well. All right, so it doesn't matter too much that I've messed up the middle a little bit here because we really only have one common factor in this list, only one matching factor, and that is a 4. So we have a 4 in this list and then a 4 in the list of the factors of 100. So you're looking for not the smallest number anymore, that was yesterday. Now you're looking for the largest matching number. All right, so the largest matching factor is 4. So we can just write down that the GCF equals 4. Okay, now that method is perfectly fine, but remember, there is a chance that you might, as you're thinking about the factors, miss 1 or 2, and it could end up being that that's the one that you need to match. So remember, I do like the stair method a little bit better. I find it a little bit easier to make sure you get the right answer. So let's just review how to do that. Remember, it has to do with dividing. Okay, so we'll start with number 44. And remember, you divide it by the smallest prime number, which is 2. Okay, so 44 divided by 2, you get a 22. We can keep dividing by the smallest prime number, 2 again. 22 divided by 2 gets you 11. Once you have prime at the top, remember, that means stop. 11 is a prime number. It can't be divided anymore, so we stop there. And then we do the same thing for 100. We start with the smallest prime number, which is 2. 100 divided by 2 gets us a 50. We can divide 50 by 2. We end up getting a 25. 25 now can't be divided by 2, so you move to the next smallest prime number, which would be a 3. We can't divide 25 by 3, so we move on to 5. And 25 does divide by 5, and we get a 5. Prime at the top, that means stop. Okay, so now we've got our 2 staircases. And remember, you have to now look for matching numbers on the staircases. All right, so we have a 2 over here, and we have a 2 over here. We have a 2 here, and a 2 here. And that's it for the matching numbers. Okay, so once you have found those matching numbers, you ignore all the staircases except one. So we just look at one staircase. And then we multiply together those matching circled numbers. So to find the GCF, you just do 2 times 2 equals 4. And our greatest common factor is 4. Okay, so we come to the same answer no matter which method you use. Now, the last time we did greatest common factor, I made you practice both methods, but for today, you can choose which method you prefer. Okay, it doesn't matter to me which of the methods you use, both of them work. Now, how does this relate to fractions? Well, it relates to fractions because the GCF helps us put fractions into simplest form. Okay, so you have to imagine that I had given you the fraction 44 out of 100, and I asked you to put it into simplest form. What you can do to put it in simplest form is figure out what the GCF of 44 and 100 is. Once you know that, that is the number that you divide the numerator and the denominator by. Okay, so because the GCF of 44 and 100 is 4, we divide the top by 4, and we divide the bottom by 4, and we end up with 11 over 25, and that number is, or that fraction is in simplest form. Okay, so you use the GCF, that's the number you divide the numerator and the denominator by to get simplest form. So we'll do one more example just to make sure you for sure get it. So let's say I asked you to simplify the fraction of 6/28. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start by finding the GCF. I prefer the stair method, so I'm going to use the stair method, but you could use the list. So we have a 6 and we have a 28. We start with the smallest prime number. 6 can be divided by 2, so we divide it by 2. And we get a 3. 3 is prime. Prime at the top, that means stop. Let's do number 28. We divide it by the smallest prime, which is 2. We get a 14. That can be divided by 2, so we do that. We get a 7. Prime at the top. That means stop. Okay, now in this example, we look for matching numbers, but notice that there's only one matching number. So if that's the case, then you don't have to do any multiplying. You can just say that the GCF is 2. And then all you have to do is take your fraction of 6 over 28, and then you divide the top by 2, or the numerator by 2, and you divide the bottom or the denominator by 2, and then you get 3/14, and that is your fraction in simplest form. All right, so you're going to have to be doing some work today at, first of all, finding the greatest common factor using either the list method or the stair method, your choice. And then you're going to be doing some simplifying of fractions like I just showed you here.